It is time for our weekly Rants and Raves. And I'm going to start with Dan.
I have a rant for everybody's favorite government agency, the Internal Revenue Service. Not for necessarily what you think. I want to rant that in recent years, the IRS has brought to a virtual standstill the approval of 501c3 status for nonprofit news organizations. 8 to 10 years ago, we saw the New Haven Independent, Voice of San Diego, Min Post, and some others come online, get this tax-exempt status, and use that to really grow into an important alternative to a for-profit media business that was really starting to run into trouble. Without really much explanation, the IRS has really ground this to a halt in recent years. We've seen the Chicago News Cooperative actually have to go under because they were unable to get this status. We've seen other cases like this.
Did Breitbart.com try to get it?
You know,
Maybe
that's
it was a political.
That's a good question. I don't know, but I do know that some very good news organizations have not gotten it. Apparently, part of it is what is an educational institution. For instance, the Investigative News Service actually said, they were told, drop the word journalism from your articles of incorporation and we'll approve your application.
Wow. All right, Kelly, what do you got?
Well, we need folks that are just going to be taking the long view and the consistent view of issues that we've been talking about tonight. And the Columbia Journalism Review has been that. CJR, as is known in the business. Just this past week, Cindy Stivers, it wasn't this past week, I guess in the last couple of weeks, left to be AOL's editor-in-chief, and that just started a whole domino effect of people being laid off. Now, it is true there's a new dean coming in. Nick Lehman is stepping down, and Steve Call is coming in. And, you know, he's a journalist, Neiman alum, plenty of books, all of that, you know, would seem to want to have this institutional organ still in place. They say, again, it's a matter of money. They didn't reach where the target they thought they would reach to support the magazine. But I think if it really goes away or is shrunk to something, and a lot of people got laid off, I can't imagine it'll be able to do the job that it's done in the past.
What about the website? That's still there, though.
Well, no, some people got laid off from the website. It's like a big shrink right now. Now, you know, maybe new guy comes in, he hires some other people, they make some shifts and adjustment to work within limited resources or more limited resources, because nobody has a lot of money. But it would be a shame if it's no longer what it used to be.
Roy.
Well, I have a rave shout-out for an investigative journalist named Russ Baker, and not the Russell Baker that some of us of a certain age remember as the op-ed columnist for the for the New York Times. Russ is familiar here. He's been on Greater Boston. He runs a blog called Who, What, Why, and this week he delved into questions that weren't answered sufficiently, at least for his taste, from the Boston Marathon bombings. And a number of things he raised were questions in my mind, like, what did happen? I mean, I read all of the timelines from the Globe, but the question came back, did anyone go and revisit, for example, the robbery at the 7-Eleven?
Yes, and he was wrong about that.
Yeah, I mean, it was revisited, but there were some of the other elements that really hadn't been discussed very much.
And you brought up the question about the Mercedes, which was gone over in detail in the Boston Globe. They explained how that guy bought the Mercedes. Danny, anyway. So some of his questions are a bit rhetorical, but
that one he presented in terms of what's all this about Mercedes and young people? Which was a little bit off the wall. I don't remember seeing the settlement, though, of the question about the naked arrest in Watertown.
Yeah, that was a good one too.
Maybe that's. So I'm just glad that people are following it up.
Adam.
Quick rant about the Toronto Star. This week, the website Gawker reported on a video that's making the rounds in Toronto that apparently shows the mayor of Toronto, or someone who looks exactly like him, smoking crack in a semi-sentient state. Gawker put this story up. A couple hours later, the Toronto Star put up their own version of the story. They, too, had reporters who had seen the video. But the Toronto Star, first off, touted their story as an exclusive when they'd actually just been beaten to it, and revealed that their two reporters who were working on the story had seen the video in question on May 3rd. So for 2 weeks, the Toronto Star sat on evidence, strong evidence that their own journalists had seen with their own eyes, that the mayor of the city was using illicit drugs, which to me seems unconscionable.
Well, maybe they're trying to verify it. You know?
Maybe, although, you know, they put it up immediately after Gawker, so you had the impression that in their own mind they already knew it was legit. They were just too timid to go with it. That's how it seems anyway.
All right, well, I have a rant for NBC News for dropping the news magazine 30 Rock. You know, Rock Center, sorry.
Rock Center.
Sorry, Rock Center.
Yeah.
This is a good show. It may not have sometimes the depth and breadth of 60 Minutes, but they've worked really hard to make this, you know, current, and sometimes it's hip, but they, you know, they've done some really fine investigative work. And, you know, none of these shows, you know, the only one that's really been able to sustain its time slot over all these decades is 60 Minutes. I mean, even 2020 has struggled with it, but you got to stick with these things. And I know some of them are expensive, but you know, NBC's got a whole lot of venues now, and it seems to me that dropping it was, you know, an option they didn't need to take.
Is Rock Center the one that used Chelsea Clinton?
Yes.
So not to blame the demise of the show on her, but maybe you know, get rid of the fluff. Make sure that you're using good established journalists.
That was a dreadful segment.
Thank you.
That was awful. Yeah. All right. And that is it for Beat the Press. Should cameras be allowed in the Whitey Bulger trial? Tell us what you think at beatthepress.org. Monday on Greater Boston, teaching urban kids to swim. Drownings in the black community far exceed the average, and one group steps in. And later in the week, Eric McLeish was an advocate for pre-sexual abuse victims. Then his own memories of abuse surfaced. We'll have his story. That's all next week on Greater Boston. I'm Emily Rooney. Thanks for watching.